I'll start. My name is Rod, and I like to party.
So you mean whiskey?
What?
You're saying it weird.
Saying what weird?
All of it.
Where do you get off?
Hey, thanks for being here today. I'm really excited. If you haven't met me, my name is Robert Frazier. My friends call me Bobby, and I am doing this podcast to share some ideas about church planting. That's why we're here, is to grow and to learn. And today I've got a new friend that I've been getting to know this last month. His name's Steve Hyatt. He's the director of Orchard NEO, which I learned is not Neo. It's Northeast Ohio. It's a region, it's a place, the home of what many of you basketball players would think of as LeBron James's hometown. So, Steve, how long have you known LeBron? And tell me about him as a junior hire.
Yeah, so uh, LeBron and I go way back. Apparently, we were both born at the same hospital.
Oh, there you go.
There you
Claim to
go.
fame.
Yeah, he was born there a few years after me. Quite a few actually.
That's really sad when the professional athletes are like years younger than you, and you're like, I guess that dream is dead now.
That's right. That's right. I always wanted to dunk, but that never happened either. So
No, short white people should be like really saved from even watching basketball as young people, because it's truly heartbreaking that we love it so much. At the same
I
time,
think I jumped up and grabbed the rim one time, and that was like eighth grade, and it was all downhill from there. So,
you lost the cartilage tightness you needed.
yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, Steve, you're the
Yeah.
director of Orchard NEO, and it is a church planting network that was born out of the church that you serve at. So tell me a little about the story of how it started. And I really want to get down to like, what does it look like to lead networks of church planting from within a church? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, thanks. I'm really happy to be here, and this has been a really fun ride for me. The I've actually I'm coming to the completion of my second year as being the director of the program. The program started in 2019 as part of the vision of Christ Community Chapel, which is a larger church in Hudson, Ohio, which is a suburb. I think Cleveland and Akron both argue that it's their suburb. So depending on which city you moved from to get to Hudson, you'll say
Which direction you drive in the morning to
that's
work?
right. Yeah, that's right. So I call it an Akron suburb,
Okay.
uh, and LeBron does too.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
yeah.
Good.
So, um, so yeah, the vision of the church was to figure out how to be a part of church planting in the area. And they had made some church not not plants, but campuses really,
Mhm.
um, that they had started, and eventually those churches ended up becoming their own church, going independent.
That
And
happens a lot because everybody realizes that there's no economy of scale to campuses. It's just more work, and they're like,
that's right.
"Why don't you go be your own problem
That's
rather
right.
than ours?"
That's right. Off you go. And yeah, so so they have a little bit of practice of kind of birthing some churches. And they kind of looked at the kinds of things that they were good at and what the Lord had given them, and really discovered that, rich in resources, not only financially, but in people and in some expertise and what we could offer that way. So they started this vision of planting 60 churches in Northeast Ohio in the next 30 years, from 2020 to 2050.
Mm.
So that is the vision of the church, and Orchard NEO is the program that they started in order to help them accomplish that vision. So, um,
Okay.
yeah, we have begun in the past year or so to partner with other churches in terms of networking.
Mm.
And So that is just a new thing that we've started. There are some other networks in the area, denominational networks, and so I have been in some dialogue with them and trying to figure out how our networks might be able to partner. Uh,
Hmm.
we really do want to see a movement in this area. Northeast Ohio is probably about 4.5 million people. Um, it's about 20 counties. We've um, we've done some research. We've kind of looked at 60 cities of 5,000 people or more. Um,
Wow. Yeah.
trying to find spaces where, there might be some churches, but we're looking for um, cities that don't necessarily have what we would see as a culturally relevant, outreach oriented, thinking in terms of kingdom mission, reaching their neighbors, kind of a church.
Yeah, because
Um,
all churches aren't necessarily created equal in terms of their ability to reach the people around them.
yeah,
Like
and
some
even
churches have like they're still taking care of the people that God has brought to them, but they haven't figured out how to kind of get outside of themselves.
yeah, even if they, let's say, 50 years ago, they were really good at
Mhm.
that, maybe their neighborhood has changed
Yeah.
and they don't actually know how to reach their neighbors now because changes in demographics or whatever the case might be.
Hmm.
Um, so we we're really just wanting to reach out to those neighborhoods and you know, we're not trying to do a Starbucks model. We're trying to have like a local coffee shop feel, where
Hmm.
if you transplanted that coffee shop into another town, it just wouldn't feel right anymore.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so
So I mean, there's some natural questions that come from that. The first is like, how are you finding leaders that you're working with? Like, how are you identifying possible church planters? Are they coming from within your community? Are they coming outside? Yeah, what's that recruitment look like?
yeah, they've come a number of ways. We try to have the nets open as wide as possible, so we use um, church jobs and church staffing and things like that. But we also have guys who we had a deacon who had a friend who was already starting a church and had been meeting in his living room for a few months doing Bible study with some people and said, "Hey, listen, these guys have a program. Maybe you should check it out." And
Great.
then that guy came on board a couple years ago, launched last Easter, and they're planning on becoming independent this coming um, summer.
Great.
So yeah, recruiting's probably one of the pinch points for us. It's probably one of the hardest things that we're doing. That seems to be the case for a lot of people in terms of church planting programs and movements. So
Well,
uh,
here's your chance. You're on with our, who knows how many people listen to this. I know what the metrics say. There's about a thousand people a month who are downloading an episode here. So if you're talking to the, thousands of folks who are listening to the Church Planter podcast, what's your pitch for Northeast Ohio? Give it to us. Tell
oh,
us tell
Northeast
us
Ohio.
the hidden gem of Northeast Ohio.
Oh,
Nobody believes you, but just walk us through it.
yeah, so we actually keep it hidden as much as possible because we really don't want a whole bunch of people from the coast moving here.
Yeah, we do
And
the same thing. So if you're from California, New York, Massachusetts, Washington, or Oregon, just turn off right now. Okay.
that's right. That's right. So we I mean it actually is a pretty amazing place. We've first of all, I like all four seasons, right? So, you have to be a person who can kind of enjoy that. We have a national park. It's like one of the only free national parks in the whole country.
Mm,
Um, I actually drive through it every day just to get to work, so I'm actually pretty thankful for it. Um, but yeah, we've got city, we have inner city, we have suburb, We have small town feel. Northeast Ohio, if you're coming like from Chicago across Route 80, the western side of Ohio looks exactly like Indiana and flat all the way out to the the mountains. But as you get into the foothills of the Appalachians in Northeast Ohio, there's some terrain change, a lot of woods, a lot of good hiking, waterfalls, a lot of beauty. And it really is the sports teams here, we have a lot of people who,
We don't have to talk about that if it helps to not talk about sports.
you know, we like to measure our loyalty factor, I guess. So
When all else fails, there's at least loyalty.
that's right. So
Uh,
we love our Browns and we love the Guardians, even though the name got changed. And you know, it's actually there's a Midwestern feel here where people are still friendly. There's there are changes when you get into some other big cities, but Akron is kind of like a small town feel, but it's a bigger town. Cleveland actually has a lot going on. Some of the best food in the world you actually find in Cleveland. Don't tell anybody. It's
okay.
uh it's
I don't
actually a
think
fun
they'd believe me
fun
if I
place.
told.
Yeah. But no, it's there's something about like in terms of raising a family here. Um, in terms of you're not going to find better football than Northeast Ohio. You're just
You're close
not.
to Canton. You can go to the Hall of
Cam's here
Fame.
for a reason. It's here for a reason. Yeah. Yeah. And there are fun things like the Football Hall of Fame or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and, some
Mhm,
other things
mhm.
like that. But yeah, I really think, man, I love it here. I grew up here. I've traveled all over the world. I've lived in different places in the world. And yeah, there's really nothing like it.
Tell me about the spiritual climate in Northeast Ohio.
Boy, it's an interesting thing. I mean, you think about cities like Cleveland and Canton. I honestly have not been able to wrap my head around it. I think that there's been a lot of religiosity in the past, and I think there is some burnout from that. Um, and Akron has had some pretty good sized churches that have actually done a lot of church planting and expansion, campuses that turned into churches. So there really is a lot of growth that way. This church is actually a church that was planted out of that tradition, coming from Akron. So, um, there's a lot of mainline churches and people who are kind of like into the traditions of where those churches have come from. Um, Kent State is on the east side of Akron. So there are college towns in the area. There's a number of very good colleges in the Cleveland area. So students are kind of coming in and out. But yeah, I would say that there's really a lot of need spiritually.
Mhm.
But there's also like there's a hunger that's there. People have kind of recognized their need and they're not too proud to admit it.
Yeah. So so you guys are a church that does church planting. You've created this organization that supports church planting within your church and partnering with people who are maybe parachute folks or locally identified folks. What is that normal in your region? Are you an outlier? And like what have you learned in the process over the last couple of years working with this organization? What surprised you? What's been easier than you thought? And where are the difficulties? That was like six questions, but
Yeah.
jump in.
I don't really know anybody who's doing what we're doing. I mean, we take on a church planter for 2 years. We pay them a full salary, benefits, and we we basically pay for everything. The church comes alongside and helps with everything from a logo to a production system, to a website, paying for rent for a venue, signage, and we have a full board training that we do with all of our guys. The way we have it set up now is that they kind of come in cohorts, start 2 guys at a time. So second year guys can kind of help out with first year guys and speak into where they're at. And my hope and dream is that those guys can continue when they're out of the program to encourage each other, help each other, provide for needs. And that's actually been something that's been really encouraging to me. I love watching those connections happen, for light bulbs to click, and you know, for them next year to turn around and do the same thing for the new guys. So um, that's been a great thing to watch and be a part of. We really have kind of made a turn in a sense of understanding that we're in a post-Christian climate. Um, and so thinking of ourselves in a sense as domestic missionaries, that are trying to reach out. We're not trying to ride the coattails of some kind of a cultural Christianity, where we can sort of ride on the ghost of the past with that. And
There aren't
so
people saying, I grew up in church and I'm looking to get back into it. Like that number is much smaller than it's been in the past.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, yeah, people who've never really experienced or even stepped foot into a church. I I actually met a guy on Sunday who'd never been in a church before in his life.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. So yeah, Easter. So, it's it's uh, the approach of having a missionary mindset, I think, is something that um is very helpful. Even just to, think of someone coming from a different culture. My wife and I were missionaries in China for 7 years, and so um, I think it's something that is a change in the way that we need to think about the ways that we're reaching out. But it's also an exciting thing, because um, when we start to think of our neighbors that way, it actually can release us to just accept who they are and not expect them to have some kind of a Christian cultural background.
hmm hmm It gives you more grace, more room to let them be them and come to Christ where they're at, or actually meet them where they are.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right. And even just to be able to weigh like what kinds of things are actually important to the church, that are crucial for the gospel to go out and be clear, and which kind of forms that we carry may not necessarily be um, helpful or even recognizable to people, and it's okay to drop those.
yeah.
Uh, do you really need pews or whatever it is?
So you're working with a handful of church planners the last few years. Where, when you see them and their mindsets about church planting, where do they need to change how they think about church planting? And like what advice would you give to people who are kind of at the beginning of their church planting journey?
Yeah, I do think you have to forgive the term probably, but I call it the siphon method. I don't think that it's a bad thing to grab a few people from the mothership and take them with you, at all. But also, I think that counting on that to be like your church, can take you out of the missionary mindset.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, reaching the lost, having that be primary, and really, as we look at statistics, we can see that, new churches, people, are coming to faith in higher numbers in the first few years of a new church than in churches that have been established, right? So,
Right.
um, so I think that that's one mindset that can be really helpful. It's just to like press into who people are, take the time to hear the story, listen to their where they're coming from. But more than that is the discipleship aspect of training other people to do that same thing. And that
What that reminds me of is you've got, how everyone is an extrovert from the time they're like 18 to 24 because they're trying to find a spouse and
right.
they need to like get connected to as many people as possible so they can find that one person that will stand them and spend the rest of their life with
Yeah,
them.
right. That's right.
Um, I think a lot of times church planters that are introverted, maybe they're more in the pastor teacher kind of part of the APEST model.
Yeah.
They don't realize that when they're planting, they've got one of my favorite verses in the Bible is Paul tells Timothy, do the work of an evangelist.
Hmm.
He doesn't tell him get the gifts of the evangelism. He doesn't tell them to, go and preach a lot of sermons. He tells them do the work of the evangelist, the
Yeah, I like
proclamation
that.
of the kingdom. And I think that most church planners don't realize that they are missionaries. They think that they're gathering people to create a church, but God actually what we like to say on the Church Planter podcast is Jesus didn't tell anybody to plant a church. He said that the church would come and that the gates of hell would not prevail against it. He told his disciples to preach the gospel and make disciples. And
That's
so
right.
I love that you started there because I think most guys need to hear that their primary job when they're starting church planning is to get out there and meet as many people as they can, get
Yeah.
their extroverted energy and just bring themselves out, for connection because it is those connections that will fuel that long-term impact through evangelism and discipleship when they get to know as many people as possible, invite them into their house, have as
Yeah.
many meals as possible that first year. Because
Yeah.
once church gets rolling, it's harder and harder to reach lost people because the needs of the community that are demanding your time are going to keep you from being an evangelist. And so, like, when you have time, go do it. Be with
Yeah,
people.
that's
Don't
right.
sit in your office. You should never be allowed to be in your office as a church planner.
Yeah.
It's
And
not necessary.
part of that discipleship aspect is training up those next evangelists. So then
Mhm.
you have a Timothy and you tell them to go do the work of the evangelist because you
Yeah.
know that you're a pastor teacher and it's not really your primary gifting or whatever it is. And to send other people out there to do the same thing so that you're multiplying yourself, right? Because ultimately, you know, I can only reach so many people on my own. But if I'm doing the work of discipleship and I can send more evangelists out, then the church really can multiply that work.
Yeah. Well, we're coming to the end of our time here, Steve, but I wanted to ask you, how can people get a hold of you if they want to connect and hear more about Northeast Ohio or more about Orchard NEO and connect them with your ministry?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. So you can email me, Steve at orchardneo.com.
Okay,
Um, and our website is orchardneo.com.
great. So if you want to connect up and you're looking for a salary and benefits to plant churches, this is one of the only offers you're going to get. So
That's
you
right.
better
And
get on.
you get to move to Northeast Ohio.
And you get to, so we're not going to tell people, but that's the best part of it.
That's the best part. That's
Now,
right.
you got to know you have to at least pretend to be a Cavaliers fan or pretend to be a Guardians fan
Yeah.
if you move there.
Just
Which
buy a shirt.
Jesus said, "Come, follow me, take up
That's
your
right.
cross, follow me." The
Be all
cross is the
things to all
best.
people. That's
Yes,
right. That's
and
right.
if you can become a Cleveland Cavaliers fan for Jesus, you can do anything for the Lord. That's the depths of living in this. The prince of darkness owns this world, and we see that when we're forced to do things like this. I think it's clear. That's
Yeah.
enough teasing of Northeast Ohio sports teams. We don't have to keep belaboring it.
Yeah,
So,
they're like what, Chicago #2 or something right now, and they're gonna just tease us with that, and they're gonna,
uh-huh.
who knows what they're gonna do with that, but
Yeah, Cleveland is going to get destroyed in the playoffs because they're teasing you. They really are. Like Celtics are just gonna roll through them. It's gonna be a bloodbath.
I didn't know you were a Celtics guy. Okay.
Well, I lived in Boston for 6 years, so it
There you
gets
go.
in blood. You got a little green blood.
There it is. I'm glad I got to see Cavs beat Boston this year live. That was fun.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being on today, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's
Thanks
only
for
16
having me.
games they lost, so you get to be at one of them. Yeah, we'll talk some more soon. Okay?
All right. Thanks a lot.